Hello and welcome to IBM Bi-Weekly, a podcast focused on the technical aspects of the IBM I operating system and the community revolving around it. My name is Josh, and with me is co-host Liam. Today is the 11th of March, 2019, and we have episode 2, IBM I. What is it in store for you today? The episode agenda for today is to just discuss, what the IBM I is for all of those that do not know. I had some feedback from friends wanting to actually understand what I work on, so I thought this would be a great time to do that. We have a very relevant guest on the show today. Steve Will, the architect of IBM I, will be joining us for an interview. That will be later on in the episode after the news segment. And we have some exciting news that I guess you'll find out before the news section, because that's when we'll be doing the first sponsorship spotlight.
Yep.
So without further ado,
which is right now.
Here we go.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Omni User Group in Chicago at Omni, omniuser.org. Omni meets every third Thursday in the Chicago area, and you can check the website for upcoming speakers and the dinner meetings and their plans. So thank you to them. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, so that is the sponsorship, which leads us to the news section, which, we'll be covering the fact that we have sponsors. So the first section of news, I guess, is IBM Bi-Weekly news. We have some exciting things to talk about. We are now accepted and listed on all major platforms. So you can find us on iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, Stitcher for podcast listening. We're also on YouTube if you prefer video. You can see our pretty mugs on there. It's not just the logo with audio. There's actual video included. And we have plans to release more than just podcast content on the YouTube channel. So look forward to extras, possibly tutorials and things like that. We haven't quite decided yet, but there will be extra content there. We just wanted to announce that we're trying to reach 100 subscribers as soon as possible on YouTube. So please subscribe if you haven't yet. YouTube requires that before you can officially name the channel in a way that you have a custom URL. So we really need that sub count, please. We also have a Patreon now. So you can find that link in all the descriptions of this podcast on all our platforms. If you could please become a patron, that would be very helpful to further the podcast and any other content we'll have. The first tier is very affordable at $1 a month. And we will be sending a sticker package to all of our patrons once we have enough funding to do so, which it looks like we'll be reaching the funding to do so actually before April, surprisingly. So, look forward to stickers quite soon if you become a patron.
Yep, exciting.
Yeah, and speaking of patrons, we have official sponsors, or an official sponsor now. The Omni User Group did reach out to us after our first episode. We were very excited and offered to sponsor some episodes. So with that, if you would like to become a sponsor, before I mention that, I did tease before the episode that we wouldn't be able to highlight any other user groups or conferences and things of the like. And this is why we have a sponsor now, and it just seems a bit unfair to highlight any other user groups or conferences or things that could gain from being highlighted, while there's people that are sponsoring to do that. So now, if it's newsworthy, if it's a new user group, or if it's a conference coming up like we're about to cover here in a moment, then yes, we'll highlight it during the news section. But other than that, you don't expect any highlights throughout the podcast unless it's a sponsor. So if you would like to sponsor us, please get in contact. We have 3 slots in the episode that we will do sponsorships. We only have one sponsor, so we're doing one slot today. Other than that, sorry to bore everyone. We won't be talking about the sponsorship anymore. Just had to cover that in the news. Now we'll move on to the fact that WMCPA, the conference in Wisconsin, the one I'll be attending and speaking at,
How many
will
times will you be
be
speaking at it?
well, it was going to be 3, but Mike Pavlak reached out to me, and I tentatively may be taking on his sessions as well because he may not be able to make it.
Oh, that is
Spoiler
unfortunate.
alert! Spoiler alert! I'm not sure if I was supposed to announce that. Sorry, Mike. But regardless, like I said, it's tentative. Who
Hear it
knows
all
what
here
might happen.
first.
Yeah,
IBM
you heard it
Bi-Weekly
here
news.
first. Exciting news. I
Yeah.
may be speaking even more. Yeah,
Breaking news.
breaking news. So I'll be in Wisconsin the week that this episode goes up. If you're there, I may or may not be covering things with the podcast. We still haven't decided on that format yet, and if we will or will not be doing that. So,
And Josh may or may not have stickers.
yeah, I may or may not. I'm definitely not going to have any of the community supporter ones because those are for the patrons. But I will have a few of the normal IBM Bi-Weekly stickers. They're about as rare as diamonds.
I mean,
So,
I haven't got one yet. I'm a
yeah,
co-host
Liam
on the
doesn't have
podcast, and I
one.
don't have one. So if you get one,
I think, let me see here. I have a few to tease on the episode here.
oh
So
yeah, nice,
here's the nice bordered one here. And then we have
gorgeous.
the larger, just flat out IBM Bi-Weekly logo. And then for you patrons out there, you'll be getting this fantastic special community supporter edition IBM Bi-Weekly sticker.
Oh,
Sorry about the weak focus here on the camera, but
I'm loving it.
regardless,
They are beautiful
those are the
stickers.
beautiful stickers.
I feel like
they came out fantastic quality. I
feel like
mean,
we
they're as
need
good
to.
as you can get.
I feel like we need to say who made them. Give them a shout out.
Well, shout out Sticker Mule. I mean,
Okay, that wasn't who I was going to shout out, but
I was wondering who are we shouting out?
the guy that actually came up with the logo with the design of the.
I was like, well, you should have been more specific then.
Oh well,
The guy that came up with the logo, yeah, obviously is Liam's friend. So I'll let Liam introduce who came up with the logo.
yeah, Connor Holiday, designer, fantastic guy all around. Thank you for doing our logo. It's on a sticker. It's on the website. It's the brand now, so we appreciate it big time. At least I do very much, and I hope you enjoyed the Nando's that we got. So,
well, I most definitely appreciate it. That's for sure. He's done a fantastic job on the logo, and he's even working on another top secret design for yet another sticker that will be going out to certain patrons. So again, a little tease there. Not going to say what it is, but it is a super special edition sticker.
We love our listeners, just FYI.
Yes.
We do.
Oh, most definitely we do. So with that, I think there's just one little bit of other news.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small piece. Previously, things like XML Service, DB2 Util, and Shroot were on Bitbucket hosted under Litmus, and they were on there. But they're actually over on GitHub under the IBM organization now. So you can find, for example, you can find XML Service at github.com/IBM/XML Service, and I think there's even people are opening issues and closing issues, and there's been some pull requests, and that's exciting. That's
right.
exciting.
The community is really starting to adopt GitHub and growing.
And,
So, yeah.
and the same goes for DB2 Util and Shroot. They're on GitHub, github.com/IBM/DB2 Util/Shroot. So you can find them there, and that's exciting because IBM have been using GitHub. I mean, IBM as a whole have been using GitHub for a while, and it's great that these tools, these IBM I specific tools, are now on. They're part of that. So
yeah, I'm definitely excited about it.
Thank you, IBM.
I don't mean to sound like a GitHub fanboy or anything, or a Bitbucket hater.
Don't lie.
Because I'm neither of those. I am for whichever. But as far as community adoption goes, I feel like it's just a bit easier on the platform they just migrated to.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
mean,
glad they've made the move to GitHub and have embraced it. So
yeah, it's fantastic. It's a good move. I'm very happy about it, and that's it. I think that's all the news we have this week, actually. So,
right.
yeah.
Well, that is the only news we have for this week. But I would like to just quickly mention, since we have a little bit of time left for the news
I'd like
section.
to say one more thing as well, just afterwards.
Okay. Uh, I'll let you mention yours first because it might be the same thing. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, since we are talking about where we do our speaking arrangements, I actually am doing a remote session
Oh, okay.
on the 19th for
Right.
MMSA in the US, and I'll be doing migrating to Git for RPG ILE applications. Brand new session.
Mm,
It's going to be great. It's
a
remote,
very great talk.
so I'm excited to give it. And I think what I'm going to do actually, because this is I really like this session. I might actually record it and hook up my own like portable mic and get it on YouTube somehow, like the whole session. I've never
Oh,
done that
right,
before, but
right.
I like the session that much. I might do it.
Yeah,
It's
I
such a
mean, definitely do that.
yeah.
Hey, maybe that could be extra content.
Boom. Oh yeah, actually, it would. Great. Good idea.
um, yeah. So yeah, it wasn't the same thing, but along the same lines. My bit of extra news was going to be the fact that because I don't think we'll have an episode out in time to announce it. Otherwise, when's the summit? March.
Summit is on the 25th to the.
So yeah, I guess no, we'll be releasing an episode pretty much that day. So
It's
yeah, we might
actually I
as
lied. The
well.
26th to the 28th. Sorry.
So we could have announced it. We'll announce it twice. Whatever. There's also there's also the summit coming up in March. So the RPG DB2 summit will be happening, and alongside that will be the CIO summit that the Sidon Group throws every year. Or sorry, alongside the
Yep.
RPG DB2 summit. That's about it we'll be saying for them. We just wanted to let everyone know that that will be going on for news.
Bum,
And I
bum,
think that covers it.
bum. That's the news.
So without further ado, I think we can go ahead and skip on to the Steve Will segment. Now, right now, the format that we're following is that the interviews or conversations will be held separately a day or whenever prior to the full episode recording, just not to waste the guest's time with the rest of the episode. So this was recorded on Thursday, March 7th, just to let everyone know. And this is a conversation between Liam, myself, and Steve Will, the IBM I architect at IBM. So
Without further
without,
ado,
yeah, jump into it. Welcome, Steve. It's great to have you on the podcast as our first guest for the IBM I What Is It episode. We have some questions in store, but this is going to be more of a conversational format, and the questions are just for steering the conversation. So, Steve, would you like to just quickly introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Steve Will. My job at IBM is that I'm the chief architect for the IBM I operating system. Um, what that means for me in particular is that I am in the development organization, which is homed in Rochester, Minnesota, for this operating system that we'll be talking about today. I work, therefore, with a team of programmers and engineers on the uh, operating system and all of the new things that are going to be put into it over the course of the next several years. My specific role is to set the strategy and the plans. So make decisions about which things we're going to invest in, which things we're going to do and when. And I do that based on the strategy that we have for developing the platform. Also, in my version of the job, I've been doing this now for a little over 11 years. In my version of the job, I also spend a lot of time interacting with customers, whether it's at conferences or user group meetings or one on one with customer executives. So that's also a part of my job.
Okay, so you have a strong role in the future of the platform as well as a tight grip on the community. Not really grip, but you're in it.
I'm definitely directly involved with the community in a lot of different ways. And the technology is something that my team and I own.
Okay, so with that being said, and knowing your position based on the operating system, how would you describe the operating system IBM I to someone that has never heard of it before, has no idea what it is? How would you go about that?
Well, for people who don't know anything about it, like if I run into somebody at a generic computer conference and they have no idea what IBM I is, I would start by telling them that we're the operating system that's used by tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of businesses to run extremely secure, extremely reliable application platforms. We have customers who are running IBM I and the solutions on top of them, running banks, retailers, manufacturers, distributors, insurance companies. Basically, any kind of company could be running on top of IBM I. So it's an operating system like other operating systems that are used to run businesses. But this particular operating system was designed from the very beginning to be great at being a business solution platform. And many of the operating systems that people learn about and use today were more designed to be single user operating systems that have grown, for example. So we are a core operating system being used by businesses. That's the key thing that I tell people.
Okay, and to clarify, IBM I runs on Power hardware, right? Alongside other operating systems like AIX and Linux on Power, right?
That's right. We are one of those three operating systems that converged over the course of a couple of decades to be able to run on that same Power hardware platform. That's right.
Okay.
Would you say that the IBM I has it's a very practical operating system? And when I ask that, it's more like like when feature requests from the community come in and stuff, they're curated in a way that's you only accept requests that are practical to the operating system. There's not any superfluous bells and whistles to the IBM I. Would you say that?
Absolutely. When we're making our decisions on what we're going to put in the operating system, we're looking at the total population of businesses that are going to take advantage of things. And so we may do a new technology as one of the first operating systems that addresses a new technology if our customers and our solution vendors are going to get immediate value from it. On the other hand, if it's something that is just a flash in the pan, we're talking about it today, we'll have forgotten about it 6 months from now. Well, we probably won't invest in that.
Right. So practicality and value are very much at the forefront of the operating system, which I think is unique to the IBM I. It's something I noticed when I first joined from my Linux background. And that sort of brings me to my next question, which is what would you say distinguishes the IBM I from other operating systems?
Okay, so IBM I is an integrated platform that takes the hardest parts of managing servers and storage and data and basically automates it. The idea behind this architecture from the very beginning was we want to let our customers run their businesses using their business applications without having to become experts in the computing technology that's underneath it. The IBM I operating system is not what I call a kernel-based operating system. There's sort of two philosophies on how to create an operating system, and the one that is in primary use, and because you mentioned Linux, is so widely known, is a kernel operating system. What I mean by that is make the operating system as thin as it possibly can be so that there's not much there between the software and the hardware that the operating system is virtualizing. And that's one way to do things, but it doesn't have nearly as much power. It doesn't have nearly as much integrated into it as IBM I does. IBM I was created with these architectural elements with the intent that we, the operating system, we're going to manage things for people, and therefore it has significantly more heft to it. We have uh, these 5 pillars of our architecture that are all about doing things for the user that they don't have to do. And so we are not the same as those other operating systems. And as I mentioned before, just sort of hinted at it, we were designed from the very beginning to assume you were going to have multiple users running on it, maybe even multiple businesses, certainly multiple applications. And so the architecture was created so that things could be shared across users, across applications, and so on. And all of that architectural infrastructure was there. We didn't have to create it as our operating system grew from a single user to a single user next to another single user with a virtual machine underneath us. We were designed from the beginning to be that. So we are in many ways different.
Okay, so in a kind of more of a Linux perspective, you're almost saying that there is more integrated into the kernel space than there is in the user space by default.
Yes,
right?
that is. So, yeah, if you were going to talk in their language, that would be the case. Yep.
So, could you just describe some things that are in the operating system space that people might not expect usually?
Sure. So the first thing is that we are a relational database operating system. We don't have an operating system and then you install a database on top of it. We are a DB2 fully relational database and operating system put together. So every piece of data that we store on the system is stored so that it can be part of a relational database. Every operation we do on the file system is that as well. And therefore, as our database team gets more and more advanced with how they implement algorithms and so on, we can know that all of the data on the platform is going to benefit from increased searches, increased sorts, all of those performance and functionality things that all the databases in the world are getting better and better at. But nobody has to rewrite anything because it's all buried in, integrated into the operating system. So that's one of those key values. And it's part of the integration that makes us different.
Okay, that's good. And so it runs a database in the operating system. You make it as if the operating system is practically a database, which is great. And I think we know. I mean, it runs DB2 for I.
Yes.
So, and just to clean that up, DB2 for I, is it different from DB2 LUW and DB2 for Z? Are they different or are they the same? Do they follow the same standard?
They follow the same standards. That's the most important thing. So that SQL that'll run on any one of those platforms will run on I. Okay, that's the same. But they're implemented. They're coded completely differently. We are in our operating system. LUW assumes there is going to be an operating system below it that has a certain kind of file system. So it's implemented differently.
Great. Okay. That was a question. Yeah, last question I had on that topic there. Sorry,
clarifying things. So with DB2 being so heavily integrated with the operating system, that you brought up the efficiencies that helps with, but also it gives us access to interact with the operating system through SQL in a way with DB2. It's DB2 services, is that right?
DB2 services are created. They're relatively new to the platform just in the way that we want to give things, give users the ability to interact with things. But yeah, they exist today so that people can use SQL from either inside the operating system or on a separate box and treat interacting with our machine as if they're interacting with database resources. And so that's been a very powerful new way of dealing with IBM I that makes it easier for people who aren't familiar with the IBM I architecture to be able to do things via SQL.
Exactly. So one can build interfaces in any language that can interact with SQL, which is pretty much anything.
Yep.
And build interfaces for their IBM I. I've done such with PHP web applications using the DB2 services.
Same
Now,
here.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And another thing, just touching on the uniqueness of the IBM I compared to other operating systems, and we'll probably move on after this one, but one thing that I noticed when I joined the platform that at first it irked me a little bit, but you can definitely see the massive value that it gives. The backward compatibility on the platform, I think, is something to touch on.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. Because some people, when I describe this next bit, will say, well, that's exactly what Java does. And I understand. Well, listen to me talk for a few minutes. So when you compile a piece of code on this operating system, it gets compiled to what we call the machine independent machine interface, technology independent machine interface, the MI. Gets compiled to a set of these virtual instructions. And so your code is not compiled down to power chip instruction sets. It's compiled down to this intermediate code layer. That has made it possible for this operating system to have user code that was compiled back in 1988, still run today on a Power 9 processor without ever having been recompiled, because we take the translation from that intermediate layer down to whatever the hardware is, so the Power 9 architecture today, for example, and do that implementation. As I said, that's meant a level of compatibility that's been able to bridge decades, not just from one release to another, but decades. Now, people will often say, well, isn't that exactly what Java does? Well, it's sort of what Java does. Java brings you to an interpreted set of instructions that then need to be implemented on whatever platform it runs on. That's certainly true. Ours has been there for decades, and that architecture allows people to be certain, absolutely certain, that code that used to run yesterday is going to be able to run tomorrow, however far apart yesterday and tomorrow are. So that's one of those architectural elements of our platform, designed from the very beginning to be there, very different from typical other operating systems.
So would you compare that ability to have code that can stay continuously running? Would you pair that well with an operating system that has minimal downtime? I feel like they go hand in hand, because you can almost have something running indefinitely.
Yes. I mean, it's one of the ways, absolutely. It's one of the ways when our customers think about us as being the most reliable system that they own. One of the things they're thinking about is that they don't have to refactor things nearly as often, because that causes slowdowns, downtime, etc. So
yeah,
certainly part of it.
All right, so I want to switch the topic up a little bit here, and I just want to know, because you're involved at such a high level with a magnitude of things that happen on the operating system. Is there a favorite part or a favorite area of the operating system that you enjoy or enjoy working with the most? Do you have a favorite, area?
All right. So favorite's always an interesting thing, because you may or may not know, I have 4 children. You ask me which one is my favorite, I'm never going to answer the question, right? So, but I have a history on this platform. Before I became chief architect, I worked at lots of different layers in this operating system. I worked at the lowest possible layer, interacting with the service processor. I worked eventually on some of the porting work that brought Apache to the platform. But probably my most technical pieces of work were done in the security architecture of the platform. And so there's a part of me that says my favorite part of the operating system is that security architecture that's so different from what other operating system architectures are. I mean, we have an object-based platform, so that you can only do 2 objects what the methods or something like methods would be to a given object. Being able then to secure things based on users and roles in ways that are only possible on our operating system is pretty cool. So that's one way to look at favorites, is the where I came from. Another way to look at favorites is, what am I spending most of my time on talking to customers these days? And that would have to be the advances we've made in open source interacting with DB2. Our machine is a database machine, but this ability to bring open source to bear on our platform to do business solutions and have that interact with the database has been one of the most exciting parts of my job over the course of the last 5 years. So in that way, one might be able to look at it and say, that's my favorite because that's where I spend more time than in anything else. So I guess those are a couple answers.
Yeah, I mean, I might actually concur with the security part. It's something that I forget about, or actually just the integrity in general. It really is. It really is magnificent. Just an object can only be one thing, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that really is quite something, because of course in Windows you can a file can be anything you want it to be.
That's right.
But it's the integrity is.
Well, let's not throw any shade.
Yeah. Oh, no
Heather.
shade. No shade.
All right. Well, without any shade, one of the
Yeah,
one of
mighty
the
shade.
issues that other operating systems have had, and this is partially because they were created, as I said, as very thin operating systems, is that people have been able to find ways, for example, to get into operating system memory space and do bad things, right? Viruses and so on. Well, you simply cannot do that in IBM I. It's not that it's hard to do, and if you could just figure it out, you could do. But we actually have hardware storage protection between the power processor and the IBM I architecture. We can store everything that belongs to the operating system in space that no program can even accidentally, let alone on purpose, get into. And so when you were talking about integrity, I mean, that's something that is unique to us and has provided tremendous value to our clients, who don't even have to worry about many of the viruses and Trojan horses and so on that are part of everyday life on other platforms. Without throwing shade, I'm just saying that one of these things that we created as part of the architecture prevented something that maybe nobody would have even anticipated would have existed
Right.
back when these architectures were getting created. But because of that, there are just things that our customers don't have to worry about that way. And that has been, again, another thing Liam was mentioning, being able to continuously be up and running. Well, if you don't have to worry about going after fixes for these things, you can just do your business.
Right. And touching on securability, though, or the security we were talking about, that was something also unique to the platform. I noticed is that while other operating systems rely heavily on third-party software for security, like antivirus software, et cetera, the IBM I, IBM provides everything you need for the IBM I out of the box. So just to clarify that, the reason I bring that up is I used to hear all the time the IBM I is the most securable platform. And I just recently got that cleared up to me. The meaning behind that is that out of the box, when you boot up your IBM I, you have everything you need to secure it.
Yes.
Right.
It can all be locked down. Because of the history of how we ship this thing, it doesn't come totally locked down out of the box, because there are many software providers who assume that they're going to have some control. It's sort of like assuming that you're going to have root access, for example, on a Unix type box, right? So they assume there's going to be something there. But then it's relatively easily to lock everything down with exactly what has come with the operating system. You don't have to go and add a security package. You don't have to go add a security vendor's solution. It's all within the operating system.
So on another subject, now that we've covered your favorite area quite thoroughly, which is great, what would you say would be the most progressive release, in your opinion, of the operating system?
All right. So of course we make progress with every release, but you're talking about big jumps. So I'm going to say that there were three big jumps in the progression of our architecture. The first one is maybe older than you guys are. Anyway, was V3R6.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, there was in the early days of this operating system, back when it was the AS400.
Steve, you can't
This
say that.
operating, yeah, this operating system, and all of the hardware that was associated with it, so storage, processors, I/O, everything was created specifically for that platform. But IBM said, we are going to eventually want to converge into a set of hardware that could be used by multiple things. And so back in this release, V3R6, we had to converge from the original hardware processing architecture to the new PowerPC architecture. It was new at the time. And that's what eventually became the power systems that we are today. So we had to do a whole rewrite, essentially, of half the operating system, and yet preserve that backwards compatibility that we talked about. So code that was created on the very first release would still run even though it was on an entirely different set of computer instructions. So that was very progressive. At that point, we said, okay, not only have we kept our promise to our customers about compiling down to the semi and making it backward compatible, but we'll be able to do that no matter what happens, right? We've solved all the problems. And then when we went from that PowerPC to the very first Power 4 and Power 5, and then went to symmetric multiprocessing with thousands of threads, we had proven to ourselves already that we'd be able to do that. So that was number one. The next release, I think, that would be similar in terms of its impact and progression was the 7.1 release. I realize, again, that this may be a little different for folks who haven't worked with this platform, but back in the day, all operating systems would force you to go to a new major release in order to get new major function. And in 7.1, we created a part of the architecture that would allow us to add things to a major release that were very significant, but wouldn't force you to go to the next major release. And that we did in 7.1. And that has allowed us to be far more agile in how we deliver things. We can get things out there for open source that's, progressing at an amazing pace, as well as our software development, as well as our DB2 and so on. So that was a big change. And the next release that we do is going to have a similarly big deal associated with it. I can't talk about that now, guys. You got me a couple months too early for that. But there are progressions that happen every release, but there are big progressions every generation or so.
Right. So the next release is going to be,
there's a big one. There's a big change happening. Yep.
Okay. Well, that's cool. How
but
exciting.
We won't make people retranslate or anything.
Nope.
Okay.
Right.
That's cool.
So we did just, I think we just kind of covered that the platform does have Yum on it now.
It does. Yeah.
So for all of the Linux listeners out there is package management with RPNs on the IBM I platform now.
Yep. That's been exceptionally well received in our development community, the people who develop.
Most definitely, I can vouch for that.
Yep.
One of those that cheered for it.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we can move on from the progression.
Okay, so with that being said, and you don't. Maybe this is maybe a less technical question, but what do you see for the future of the operating system? I mean, as an operating system, how do you think the perception will change? What do you think is the future for this industry, or the operating system in general?
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, the whole industry is beginning to assume that you as a user of computer resources should be able to use it anywhere you are, anytime you want to. And over the course of the last decade, that has meant different things to different populations. But one of them was that you ought to be able to use a mobile device to connect to our platform. And For people who are not familiar with IBM I can just tell you that you can connect mobile devices to IBM I just like you can to anything else. For people who've been on this platform for a long time, they may not even be aware of that because there were these stable methods for doing user interfaces on our platform, and many of them didn't move those interfaces to mobile devices. But that's been a huge change over the course of the last decade or so as more and more clients respond to their customers and their executives who want to have mobile interfaces. So that's one of the parts of the anywhere. Another part of the anywhere is, can you run this thing not in your own data center? Can you run it in a managed environment or a cloud environment? And so you asked about the future of the platform. Part of the future of the platform is making sure that anybody who wants to get access to it will be able to find a provider. They can certainly buy a system. We'd love for them to buy a system, and many of our clients, most of our clients, will continue to do that. But some clients will interact with this operating system through solutions that run their businesses, banks, for example, or insurance companies, and they won't even know where the platform is that is running this business solution for them because it will be on somebody's cloud, whether it'll be a
Right.
public cloud or a private cloud. So that's part of the future of the platform, is making sure that we can do everything that needs to be done and that our solution vendors can provide solutions in that cloud or managed service environment.
Right.
And then, go ahead. Go ahead.
So you're probably aware. I would be very confused if you weren't, but IBM is now in IBM Cloud,
Mhm.
right? And do you see that as a new drive for people that want to move to the cloud? Is because it's got the IBM name on it? Do you think that more people will be interested in moving their environment to the cloud, or to IBM Cloud? Do you think that's
Well, I think it was an important step for IBM and IBMI to take together because it seems like every CIO in the world is currently off looking at, does the cloud get me what I want for my IT organization? Does it get me the kind of stability that I want, the
okay?
kind of expense posture that I want? And so if we uh, want to have them look at IBMI with that same set of criteria, we want to make sure that they have an option there. Many of our clients are going to look at that, and then some of our clients are going to take advantage of it. Because honestly, cloud is a great technology, but some businesses want to have control over their
Right.
physical assets, right? So we don't think that this is going to make everybody jump to the cloud, but we do think it'll make people say, oh, you can do that with IBM I? Good, I can evaluate that just like I do with my other platforms. And that's what we need to be able to enable.
Right. It's all about having options.
Yep.
So that's great. So we're going to have a few quick closing questions to hopefully spark interest with people.
Okay.
So why is the IBMI important to me, and why would I want to learn about it if I'm listening and I'm new to hearing about this?
Okay. Well, first of all, if you're listening and you want to make a living programming, there are hundreds of thousands of installations of IBM I all around the world, and they are not all always looking, but there is always a certain subset of them who are looking for programmers. And so, one way to understand why it might be valuable is that you can make a good living doing programming on this platform. Now, you may not have heard of it before, but it's running, your bank. It's running the retail outlet that you go to. It's running the distribution company that delivered your package to you. That has to keep going. Those businesses have to find programmers. And because you can use today's technology, the open source technology that you learned when you were in school or that you've been spending time on your own learning how to do, you could apply that same technology to running businesses. And it's a more stable way of making an income than hoping that you're going to be part of the next big game that somebody creates and puts on a phone somewhere. Right. So, I mean, that's one thing that I would say, it can be important to you because it's a good way to make a living in the in the software development and design industry.
Yeah.
And businesses tend to be a little bit more consistent and more profitable. So,
I mean, you're telling truths. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
you are. You're right.
Yep.
Okay. I think we'll end it with a closing question. I think
Okay.
it doesn't even have to be related to IBMI, but do you have a current hobby or passion that you're into outside of work? What are you into at the moment?
Oh, sure. So I am a game player. I love lots of different kinds of games, many times strategy games, but
Oh.
I also like console games to some extent. I happen to be playing through or finishing playing through my second playthrough of a game called Skyrim, which a lot of people have heard of.
Look at that. I had no
Steve,
idea that Steve
tell
was
us
a gamer.
tell us your level, Steve.
I'm currently at level 59. I've basically completed most of the
Wow.
quests
Steve
there.
Will.
I am so impressed.
Yeah.
What a way to
So
end the show. Holy.
there you go. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I do when I'm relaxing.
Wow. That's amazing. I don't even have time to game. How do you do
Yeah, well, I am fortunate to be married to someone who really enjoys watching that sort of thing. So when we spend time together,
Oh,
it's
that is so
it
sweet.
is nice that we can spend an hour or two doing that, and then we can do the
Thank you,
rest of our life.
To those that are watching on YouTube, thank you, Steve was partner. Thank you.
That was goals right
That's
there.
goals, Steve. That's goals right there. I'm happy
All
for him.
right. So I think we'll wrap it up at that. Thanks everyone for listening. And thank you, Steve Will, for joining us. It was fantastic having you on.
It was my pleasure. Appreciate it.
Steve, thank you.
All right. Well, that was an exciting interview with Steve Will. I think it went great for our first guest. Liam, I don't think we could have picked anyone more relevant to introduce the IBMI to everyone.
As soon as that interview was over, it was not only was it a great from a business perspective, but seeing as we're a technical podcast, it was right on spot. I feel like it wasn't too much.
It didn't go too technical.
It was.
It didn't go too businessy. It was just right in the perfect
Yeah.
middle, I think. And who knew that Steve Will is a gamer?
I am not. I'm not shocked. I shouldn't be shocked, but it's.
I don't know why.
It's fantastic.
I'm a little shocked. I don't know why. I think that's fantastic. I need to get his gamer tag because I feel like we could hang out sometime.
And he said it was his second playthrough as well.
that was something that was impressive to me because I don't think I have the attention span for Skyrim 2 playthroughs.
It's been a while. I haven't played it in a few years. Oh my god, it's fantastic.
Yeah. So I hope everyone enjoyed it for sure, and I hope we did the IBMI justice. And please give us feedback on the format. You can tweet at us, the IBM Bi-Weekly Twitter, or our personal ones. You feel free to email us or contact us through any of the other platforms. We would love YouTube comments, and we will be answering those and interacting with the community in every way that we possibly can. We love constructive feedback, especially since we're just starting out and this was the first interview. Do you have any closing remarks other than that, Liam, before I shout out our socials and all that?
Good question. I feel like this has been an excellent second episode. Very happy, and I think we're gonna make a lot of people happy. This is a really nice episode. I feel like. Can we say anything about our next guest?
Well, we do want to tease at the end, so I'm glad that you mentioned that. I don't think that we've decided on which our next guest will be, but I think it's fair to tease.
Can we say one at least, the one that we've confirmed?
So we have 2 episodes coming. I'll let you shout out the guest, but I'll just quickly go over we're kind of doing a track here, a series, since we introduced the IBMI, and we're going to be going over what the IBMI is this episode, then DB2 or RPG. We haven't decided which we're going to go with next. But I think I know which guest Liam wants to shout out.
It's the myth, the person, the legend, Scott Forsty.
Yeah,
He has
for
agreed.
DB2.
He has agreed. It's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be great. I don't know how to describe it. My vocabulary is not good enough to describe it. That's the level it's at. So
It is very exciting. For those that don't know, Scott Forsty, like Steve Will is the most relevant to introduce the IBMI, Scott Forsty will be the most relevant person to introduce DB2. He is the one that steers the future of DB2.
Yep. Known
So
speaker,
we
technical.
cannot wait to pick his brain.
It's going to be fabulous. Yeah.
All right.
Lost for words.
So I'm glad you teased that. That was a great tease.
I mean, don't we know one more?
Well, I have you asked her?
No, not that person. The one that we confirmed with on Slack.
His name starts with a K?
Oh, now that just gives it away. Who else starts with K in this industry?
For those that haven't guessed, we will be having Kevin Adler on at a later date.
Yeah, and that's going to be great too.
And that's going to be great. He's a very technical person at IBM, handles a lot of the open source development there. So that'll be a fun one to go over. But I think that's enough teasing of the.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting
future guest. I know it's exciting, but we don't want to give them all away. So without that, so that's done with the end of the episode, I think, people. But I would just go ahead and quickly shout out our YouTube and other social platforms again. I know I said it in the news, but we're really trying to grow. It's not that we're begging for views. It's just that we want the feedback from the community. And in order to get that feedback, we need the audience. So, so please follow us and comment on our videos and the podcast audio. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. And looking forward to seeing you in episode 3.
Thank you.